Hi, welcome to Love the Movie, Troy. This is Troy, and this is the channel where we talk about movies. So look, check me out. In this episode, we're going to talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier, the Marvel television series that dropped, and the last grand finale episode just debuted, and it was fantastic. The last two episodes of this television show was fantastic. And the reason why I start off talking about the last two episodes in this review is because honestly, I felt like this show, in my opinion, was a bit mediocre. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think this show was bad. I don't think it was terrible like some of the CW, DC shows, or some of the Netflix television series like Jessica Jones or nothing like that. I thought this was solid. It was okay, but it was mediocre. I was underwhelmed, right? Especially coming off WandaVision, which I thought was fantastic. So, but the last two episodes really bumped up my grade on how I felt about this television show. Like, it went from, this is mediocre to, oh, this is pretty damn good. In this review, I'm gonna start off talking about what I didn't like about the television show first, instead of talking about what I liked and then talking about what I didn't like. Because I want to explain why and justify why I feel like the last two episodes really saved this show. And honestly, so the problems I had with this show early on is I felt like the show lacked depth, and I felt like the show was desperate to try to find depth in the show. Like, that's why you had like Sam's sister. They introduced that Sam had a sister, or have a sister, and they, it's this whole thing with the boat and their family boat, and they're gonna sell it, and it has sentimental value and all of this stuff. And I honestly felt like that was a waste of time, and I still do, because it's like I felt like they were desperately trying to give the show substance and character. And listen, any movie or show needs character development, needs substance, needs depth. Don't get me wrong, but you can't force it in. It has to flow with the story and fit and feel like it's coherent and make sense with the story. And I just felt like they forced that in. And so the first episode came off real boring because nothing was happening. It was just, Sam giving away the shield, which I'm going to get to in a second, and he going over there, and then you had Bucky that was in the show. He was all gloomy and or whatever, and Bucky came off very boring. And Bucky throughout this television series to me came off very bland, very boring, very just, it was nothing special about him. And I get what his character, like, I understand, like, he's a character that's damaged, that been through shit, and he's this grumpy kind of down and out guy. I get it, but that doesn't mean the character has to be bland and nothing special about him. He felt, he just felt boring. He really did throughout this television series, except for the last two episodes, which I'm gonna get to. And and I just wasn't feeling the show. It was very predictable. They introduced this fake Captain America, which I didn't like at first until the last two episodes. I'm gonna get to that in a second. The villains, I didn't feel the villains. I was not big fans of the villains, mainly because I just don't like the idea of characters that, we get mistreated, so now I'm a bad guy. Now I'm gonna do a bunch of stupid things and do a bunch of wrong things because I'm mistreated. I never liked that idea. Now, don't get me wrong, I like a villain that feels like they're right and they're doing what is necessary, which would end up being wrong and makes them a villain. I like that idea. Like, I like Killmonger in Black Panther, right? Like, a guy that you really can justify why he is who he is from what happened and how he was treated, right? Like, or Joker in the Joker movie, you look at like what he went through and you say, damn, I get it, right? But characters just, this happened to me, so I'm gonna do this, or this is how I'm gonna rebel. I hate that. That's just like, for instance, not to get off on a tangent, but for instance, I hate all the black people that's getting killed in America by cops. I hate that. It infuriates me. But my reaction to that isn't, let me go blow up a police station to send a message that this can't be done and we can't allow this and I'm gonna start a movement. Like, no, that's ridiculous, right? And that's how I feel about the characters and the villains in this television show. It's like, y'all are doing ridiculous things and terrible things, which y'all aren't bad people, but y'all doing terrible things. And it's not justified for me enough. It's not justified enough for me. So the villains came off as like, really, and so I wasn't big on the villains. And they were just super soldiers or whatever. And I just felt like, I just wish they would have did something a little unique and different with the villains or whatever. So, early on, I wasn't feeling the direction the show had. And my biggest problem I had with the show was them freeing Zemo. The reason why I had a problem with them freeing Zemo is that, listen, they didn't even really try. Like, they're trying to track down the villains basically in the show that's blowing up stuff and doing things, and they're trying to track these villains down or whatever and find them and arrest their ass or whatever. And they didn't really even try, and next thing you know, they're already breaking Zemo out of jail. It's like, you guys didn't even give it another shot. Try to find them, and then as a last resort, break the villain out of jail. But the idea of, oh, we can't find him, let's go break this villain out of jail. To me, that just didn't make sense, in my opinion. I was like, what? Now, I like the idea of them working with the villain, Zemo or whatever, him coming back, don't get me wrong. But just for them to go straight to that, just, let's do it. That's like Batman, it's a few murders, we gotta find out who did it. Let's just break the Riddler out of jail, so I know he'll know. It's like, wait, try to figure it out first and make that a last resort, And that was my problem I had with it. And actually, they end up, if I'm not mistaken, they found the villains. They just got their ass whooped and then they got away. So it was like, you already found them, so just keep trying. Look for leads, figure it out, and that's what they end up having to do anyway. So I felt like, again, a desperate attempt to bring a character in from previous movies to do the whole crossover thing or whatever. And so, I don't think this show was bad. I never thought this show was bad. It's enough quality stuff in this show to make me say, okay, it's a okay show, right? But again, I found myself rolling my eyes on too many occasions. And one of the things was Bucky and the Falcon, I felt like a show like this, they supposed to take these B-list characters, sidekick type of characters, and in their show promote them to A-list badass characters. But if you really pay attention to the show, they're getting their ass whooped throughout the show. It's like, damn, bro, how many times y'all gonna get y'all ass? They made them feel like the B-list characters that they are. And I like Falcon and I like Bucky, don't get me wrong. But compared to, the Iron Mans of the world, the Hulks, the Spider-Mans, the Caps, the Thors, they're like the B-list characters, right? But in this, they're supposed to feel like those A-list characters badasses. I'm not saying they're supposed to win in every single fight they're in, but I just felt like, they're supposed to be badasses. But Falcon, he barely wore his suit in this. He dressed up as the Falcon 3 times maybe in the whole television show. And when he did, he got his ass whooped. Bucky gets his ass whooped throughout the show, right? I'm like, damn, these dudes whack. And even the fake whack ass Captain America was beating both of them up and they're double teaming them, and he's still getting over on them. I'm like, come on, man, really? Y'all could do better than that, man. And even the end, right? The last episode, Falcon shows up, he's badass in his new suit or whatever. He shows up and he's fighting this one guy, and he's a nobody. He's not anyone of significance. He's not one of the main villains. He's fighting this dude, and he's really giving Falcon a hard time. The Falcon is really getting his ass whooped, and at the end of it, he don't even beat him. He just flies off. Fuck, this guy's too tough. I fly off. I'm like, what? How? Cap would have just worked his ass real quick. Iron Man, these dudes would be nothing to them. You see what I'm saying? And even at the end, he loses. Falcon loses at the end, the last fight, he loses. I'm like, what the fuck, man? So I really I didn't really like that or whatever. But hold your horses, right? I know it seems like I'm criticizing this show a lot. Hold your horses. I'm gonna tell you why the last 2 episodes really made this show work, right? Because they fixed problems I had with the show previously. One of the things I had a big problem with was the beginning of the show. Sam gives away Captain America's shield. To me, I almost didn't even want to watch the rest of the show, because I'm like, really? Even if you don't plan on using his shield, America, you should keep that shield as a relic from a friend, right? That's like if I became friends with Michael Jordan, he gave me one of his Super Bowl rings. I don't have to go and become Michael Jordan, but I could keep this ring and cherish it, right? So I'm like, you really just said, fuck Captain America, and gave his shield away, and sure enough, some cornball ass Captain America gets the shield. And I'm like, oh my goodness, right? I was on Bucky's side. Like, Bucky was like, how could you do that? I'm right with Bucky. Like, how could you do that? But in this last episode, it's explained how, like, you know, a black man, as a black man, Sam being a black man, he didn't want to deal with that responsibility of people expecting him to be the next Captain America. And you really understood his perspective, right? Throughout the show, he's like, you have to respect my decision. I'm like, why? But in that last episode, he gave his perspective, and you really felt for it. You really could understand it. And looking back, I was like, okay, I can understand. I'm not gonna lie, I can understand why you gave the shield away, right? And another thing, Bucky, like I said, Bucky to me was flat throughout this whole television show. He was like, you know. But the last 2 episodes, he gained all the charisma I felt like he should have had. He felt more like a badass, right? He really did. He became a dope character. You know, the banter between Sam and Bucky started working, where early on in the show I was kind of like, I'm not buying their chemistry. I feel like they're forcing it. But the banter at the end, like, they had great chemistry, right? It's a scene where I just enjoyed them talking to each other, and Sam is giving Bucky advice, and I'm like, man, that's some good ass advice. And then they go back and forth joking, and it worked. And so Sam became a better character. Another problem I had was the fake ass Captain America. I was like, what do y'all, like, this dude is whack. This dude, like, really? Y'all gonna make a new Captain America? Right? A guy that doesn't have superpowers? A guy that, like, I wasn't feeling that. I really wasn't. But by the end, I bought into it more when you know, he has this, like, scene of them, you know, basically stripping him of his mantle of being Captain America, and he talks about, like, what he's been through in the court, and he kind of goes off and he starts yelling at the people in the court room, and I was like, man, I understand, you know, why he felt like he deserved to be Cap. And I also understand, like, when you lose a friend in the heat of battle, you know, your mind is messed up and you make mistakes and you do things that you probably shouldn't have done. And I think he realized that. And I loved how by the end, when he shows up for revenge to fight the villains of this show, he ends up being on the good side. Like, he ends up working with Bucky, you know, and to help take him out. And I like how he tried to save, you know, the car from falling. Like, he felt like Captain America at the end, really. Not as badass as Cap, not have the charisma of Cap, not as good as an actor as Cap, not as, like he's not Cap. But I'm just saying, like, if anything, if he ever picked up that mantle, it was at the end, right? And he became more of a badass, and he worked for me. He felt like this third layer of the story that kind of interweaved through the story, and it worked well, or whatever. And it was setting up some other stuff at the end with his character, and I was like, all right, that's pretty dope. So again, that worked. And then the scene with this black character, he was a old super soldier that they did wrong. They locked him up. They experimented on him. He was basically like Bucky in a way, and they really fucked up his life, to be honest. And what really gave the show depth was that conversation that Sam had with that black character. I can't think of the character's name. It really gave this show levity. When he started talking about racist themes and he started talking about unjust themes, I really respected the show going there, going deep like that. And it really flowed with the story because Sam, being one of the main characters, he's a black character. And he talked about being a black Captain America, what that could mean and what that could do to him in his life. Like, people wouldn't like that. It would be people that want to kill him more. It'll start problems or whatever. And it worked, especially me being black. It really made the show feel more realized. It made the show feel realized, and it gave the show the depth that I think it was missing. And so when Sam gives the speech at the end, you know, I really kind of almost teared up. I mean, he was spitting some real shit. Like, he was talking about some real stuff about this world, this nation, you know, in America. And it was just so good. And it was built by that scene with the black character that showed up earlier in the show, where I was kind of like, what was that for? What was the scene? Like, it, you know, earlier in the show, I just felt like he was just there again to just force some kind of character development or depth into the story that didn't really work. But bringing him back, it did work, and it worked very well. And so, yeah, man, it really did. The last 2 episodes. And then again, it picked up in terms of pace. And again, it wasn't just the action either, right? Like I said, it's not always a show feeling boring or slow isn't because the lack of action, right? The second to last episode, which was the 5th episode, it started off with badass action, but the rest of it was just talking and chilling. But again, I was invested in what was going on screen. I was invested on the chemistry that Sam and Bucky had. I was invested on Sam realizing that he needed to be like Cap and start training with his shield. I thought that was very cool. I was just invested in the story, man. Like, and so that 5th episode that didn't have that much action, it didn't feel boring. It felt like that. And it showed like that's how the rest of the show should have been. So, you know, overall, I felt like it was like someone having a ball playing basketball and they got one last shot to win and they hit the shot at the buzzer beater. That's how I felt about Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm gonna end it with this. Anybody can be, any race, if there's gonna be a new Captain America, any race can be Captain America. So I like the idea of a black character taking on the mantle of Captain America. But anyway, the grade I give this television show is a 7.5 out of 10. I had it around 6. Going like episode 4, I had it at like a 6, right? After these last 2 episodes, it boosted it. I got it at 7.5. It's a good show, man. I enjoyed it. I think everybody should watch it. It's fun. You know, Falcon is fantastic in the show. Bucky is fantastic in the show. It is some setup going on there, right? Where I could see this show having a 2nd season even. So, who knows? But anyway, that's my review on Falcon and Winter Soldier. Check it out. Thanks for watching this video. Please remember to like, share, subscribe. Thank you.